Here comes Mitchell. Go Bears! Utah takes the lead.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. This is episode 49, and I'm your host, as always, Tyler King, college sports reporter for the Denver Gazette. But we are back talking about the NBA today because it is another NBA Mondays episode here on the show. And we're going to be talking exclusively about the Utah Jazz today, although we'll have a little bit, some stuff on some college teams at the end because obviously Feast Week is here. And I didn't get a chance to get an episode up on the feed last Friday, which is so much stuff going on here with the end of the college football season. These episodes will be a lot more regular and more part of that set schedule I mentioned a couple weeks ago. Starting next week, basically, as soon as college football is done and dusted here in Colorado, because I think all four teams along the Front Range, if you include Air Force and Wyoming, are not making a bowl game. So all of the off seasons are starting pretty quickly here along the Front Range for the football teams. But basketball is rolling right along. And today, like I said, and as you can tell by the intro video, we're going to be talking about the Utah Jazz. And to do so, we've got Chandler Holt from KSL Sports on the show. Chandler, I appreciate you hopping on this morning.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, and obviously you live in Salt Lake City and are around this Jazz team a lot. In the midst of a back-to-back, obviously they play the Warriors tonight here before we record this on Monday, but lost another close game to the Lakers last night on Sunday. Pretty nice comeback by the Jazz early in the third quarter. Kept it close against a full-strength Lakers team, I think. DeAndre Ayton got hurt during the game and left, but LeBron played last night, still in a minutes restriction, but Luka, Austin Reeves were all out there. And the Jazz kept it pretty close. But I wanted to get your thoughts. Mostly today, I want to talk a little bit about Ace Bailey because obviously everybody who listens to this podcast knows I wasn't his biggest fan during the pre-draft process. I was a little bit, concerned about what his role would be at the next level and what he would be willing to buy into. But these last couple games as a starter, I think it's 7 or 8 games now, I've been super impressed. And I was really just dialed into watching him last night. And he's doing all the little things that I felt like he could do given his frame and his athletic profile. So that's why I've just been super encouraged. Obviously, heading into last night, I think he still had the worst net rating on the team. But these last couple games, he's as a starter, like I said, he's just been so improved. He's doing all the little things. He stripped Luka at one point in the second half. He had a putback dunk with one hand off a rebound. He's still hitting, he's still hitting shots like you would expect him to do, but he's not taking shots that he used to take last year at Rutgers. Like he's trying to be a willing playmaker. Sorry for rambling there, but Chandler, what have you liked most about seeing Ace these last couple games, especially in this increased role?
You explained it perfectly. Coming out of Rutgers and on the Jazz Notes podcast that I do, we did a lot of player profiles heading into the draft. We're like, okay, this is what this guy's good at. Do we like him? Do we think he would fit well with the Jazz? And when we talked about Ace, we're like, why? Like going in, we were expecting this shot chucking, selfish sort of player, but that wasn't really it. Like even at Rutgers with Dylan Harper, mind you, it was Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and then nobody else. That's why Rutgers didn't do much in the NCAA last year. But he's even come in his rookie year so far and done things that we didn't even see at Rutgers. I already liked him at Rutgers, and I thought he would have fit very well next to Lowry, Keontae, and what the Jazz were building. But he comes in and he is all over the glass. He is like, mind you, he's a rookie. He's not going to be a good defender, but he's trying. And that's more than you can say for a lot of rookies in the NBA. And yeah, it's just like all the little things. And it's so promising because you watch him and he does all these little things. He's hustling. He's on the glass, like I said, but he's talented enough to get the shots that made him a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. And that hasn't even been here as sometimes this year. If I look at his game log, like, he struggled the first few games of the season.
That's really where the net rating stuff kind of gets in. There's first like 3 or 4 games. Yeah.
First game, 2 points on 1 for 5. Second game, 0 points, 0 for 5. Third game, 6 points on 2 for 9 shooting. And then just looking at the last 10 games, he has 2 20 pieces. And a lot of these games, he's filling up the stat sheet. Like he had 21, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Like that is awesome from Ace Bailey. And that's not even what I was expecting coming into his rookie year. I was thinking it was going to be a lot of, he's a difficult shot maker, so there's probably going to be some questionable shot decisions and stuff like that. But no, I'm with you. He has been awesome so far, and it's so promising that he's doing the little things, and the scoring, if anything, has been the thing that's like, okay, it's not really here yet.
Yeah, that's kind of what exactly wanted to see from Ace Bailey. Like I didn't think he had the talent to be like a number one option in the NBA, but I felt like if he bought into the role, I think that bought into a role both offensively and defensively because I liked what I saw on both ends. I think the biggest comparison or the one I tried to make, because obviously I watch a lot of Nuggets games here in Denver, was I thought he could be a combination of Michael Porter Jr. and Peyton Watson, a guy that is a really good offensive player, and somebody that can be a guy that whoever your offensive hub is, which right now that's Keontae George. In a year's time, that could be Darren Peterson or Cam Boozer or somebody, whoever else the Jazz get at the top of next year's draft. I thought Ace could be a guy that could fit well alongside somebody like that. And heading into this year, I wasn't really sold on Keontae George yet. I was kind of down on Keontae. Obviously, well, I want to talk about him a little bit too because I've been so impressed with his start to the season. But Ace is just kind of finding his way to fit in well, like you said, and not forcing a lot of those shots. You look at the last 6 games, he's finding a way to make an impact. He's got the best net rating on the team among the regular rotation guys over these last 6 games. And he's, like you say, he's not trying to create too much for himself. I think almost 90% of his threes are assisted, and the majority of his twos are assisted as well. So he's just trying to find a way to fit in, which I think is the most encouraging part, especially after the draft. And there was maybe like 48 hours worth of concern about if he even wanted to be in Utah, which it seems like he's bought into Will Hardy's coaching and all that. And that's the other thing I want to ask you, like what has Will Hardy been saying about Ace so far this season, and how impressed has he been with his ability to kind of fit in and try to assimilate into what the Jazz are trying to build offensively and defensively?
Yeah, of course, I'm not in the locker room, but based on everything I've heard is that Ace Bailey is the absolute light in the locker room. Like, he just has the best attitude, and like everyone sort of meshed very well together. And I don't know, the start of the season was weird because I don't know if people know this. The reason his start was so bad is because before the season opener, he was bedridden for 6 days with an illness. And so, like, he wasn't practicing. He wasn't doing any game prep. He was literally in his house for 6 days doing nothing. And then he was just good enough to make his NBA debut, but he had no practice come off of for the last week or so. Eventually, he builds back up. He gets into the starting lineup, which I have said, and a lot of people have said for a long time, Ace is going to be a starter for this team in year 1 eventually. But then it was kind of weird because every game that you felt like he was about to start, one of the starters sort of had a really good game. And it's like, okay, what message does that send if I start this rookie after this guy just had a really good game? Because coming into the season, Will Hardy sort of said the rotation is going to be a meritocracy, which, like, you have to earn your minutes. And if you don't play good, you're going to lose minutes. And it's like, we can't just play you because you're young and we want to develop you. Like, that is going to send a bad message. We want to have a winning culture, which is a good thing. At the end of the day, it is a good thing to put across that message to your guys. So yeah, Ace is now in the starting lineup, and it makes so much sense because, like we've said, he's doing all of the little things, so he deserves to be there. Because there are players in the Jazz roster who I won't necessarily single out, but they don't do the little things. They have positives that come with them, but it's like, okay, where's the defense? Where's the hustling? Where's the rebounding if you're a big? So yeah, Ace Bailey, going back to just who he is as a person, another thing is, like, coming out of Rutgers, I did a lot of research into him, and I've watched a lot of his media stuff. He is so well spoken for a rookie as well, which is something that you don't see very often. I have been in this market for about 3 coming on 4 years now, and by far one of the most pleasant people I've had the chance to speak to.
I wanted to talk a little bit of some of the other guys. Obviously, I mentioned Keontae, Lowry. It feels like, I mean, the Lowry trade talk is going to be what it is for the rest of this season. And I think I just don't think the Jazz are even going to think about it until next summer. And depending on who they get in the draft and all that kind of stuff, I think they're going to wait until at least then to figure out what they want to do with Lowry. Because obviously he's had a great start to the season, averaging around 30 points per game, looking like the all-star Lowry, and obviously we saw this with him at Eurobasket with how well he played with Finland. But I think the first person we have to talk about is Keontae, because I've talked about him a little bit on the podcast here and how impressed I've been with his play so far this year, and just being a more efficient scorer around the rim and in the mid range, because his 3-point shot is not falling as well, but he's playmaking a little bit more. He just has the ball in his hands, and he's deserved the touches he's gotten, in my opinion. What have you seen from Keontae in a big third season for him? Because obviously, if it didn't go well this year, we're looking at the point where the Jazz might look to move on or not consider him part of their plans. But he's quickly become part of the plans once again.
Two things to say. I'll preface this with. First of all, I've always been very high on Keontae George. I've always watched him play, and I guess it was just sort of an eye test thing because, like you
I always
said,
liked
the
him
first
at
2
Baylor.
years-
I was a really big fan of his
Yeah.
at Baylor, so I love the pick when the Jazz got him.
Yes. And just like, but his first 2 years in the NBA, you're absolutely right. There was a lot of weird defense stuff, terrible efficiency, didn't play like good defense, ball taking care of the ball. Yeah, it was there was a lot of bad things through the first 2 years. And don't get me wrong, this year there's still some efficiency problems, right? And like there are still a lot of 3, 4, 5 turnover games, but the biggest jump up for him this year is something you can't really see, which is maturity, right? I'm going to give a shout out to Ben Anderson, who I'm on the Jazz Notes podcast with. At Media Day, he talked to him, and he gave him, I forget all the guys, but he basically listed like 5 guys from Keontae's draft who are all the same age as him, all guards, and all of them are either traded or not in the NBA anymore. And Keontae was like, yeah, like I have to get better every single day. I have to be a leader for this team. I have to prove my hard work and that I have to prove that I want to be here to the Jazz in order to stay in this spot. And it showed that he sort of had the wheels turning in his head that like, okay, stuff isn't going to be given to me. I have to earn my spot every single day. And he absolutely has. If I pull up his stats right now, on the year, he's averaging 23 points and 7 assists a game, which is awesome. And excuse me, it's just like another big question for him is he going to be a 2 or a 1 in the NBA? And it's like, okay, his playmaking isn't the best. Like he isn't even as good as a playmaker as Isaiah Collier, his teammate. But he has much better size than Isaiah Collier. And in the past, he's had this thing where it's like, okay, I haven't shot in 5 possessions, so I should probably get a shot up this possession. And it's like, okay, that's not a point guard thing, right? But now this year, there's a lot more getting inside to the rim, getting into his mid-range, getting to floaters. And it's just the progression is really, really awesome. I think the Jazz needed that level of maturity and also showing that I would have expected, again, these are second-year guys, but Kyle Filipowski or Isaiah Collier, someone like that to make a maturity jump. But the fact that it's Keontae, I think is really good for the Jazz. And also this summer, he took a few of his teammates. I think it was the rookies and a few second and third year players. He took all of them out to Dallas, and there was a bunch of workouts, and they basically went on like a team trip together hosted by Keontae. And the whole summer, the MVP or MIP of the summer was Keontae, according to the Jazz front office, and it showed. It showed so far. The thing for him is like I said earlier, the efficiency is still questionable. He's at 43.4% from the field and 30.6% from 3. Both of his first 2 years, he was around 34, 35% from 3. I expect that to come up, and then when that comes up, his field goal percentage might be 46, 47%. So even that jump is good. And I said this, I think a week ago. If he does get up to 47 and 35%, then next year he'd be like, okay, now I can focus on my 3 this year. And all of a sudden I'm at 48 and 39%. And then it's like, okay, now you're a real efficient scorer in the NBA who's also showing you can be a good playmaker. And that's an all-star. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's already shooting his best percentage from 2 by far. You know, I think that's the most encouraging thing is the mid-range because I wasn't sure how the 3-point shot would develop, but the thing I liked about him as a prospect was I loved his ability to get downhill, get to the rim,
yes.
And then, you know, take advantage of that too by making pull-up shots in the mid-range, all that kind of stuff, making tough shots in the lane, which I felt like he could do because you mentioned, you know, he is a bigger guard for a lead guard kind of thing. So
yes.
It's just been a really encouraging start for me, like you said, and the playmaking I think is gone up a level. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the backup point guard spot because it's been a little bit of both Isaiah Collier and Walter Clayton. Like, what are you seeing from that spot so far, and how do you think that'll play out? Because I liked Isaiah Collier as a flyer at the end of the first round when the Jazz got him. There were times where I saw the flashes last year. There was a game specifically in Denver where he played really well and I was impressed with him. But I love the Walter Clayton pickup too. Like, how are you seeing that kind of play out and develop so far early in the season with those two guys?
So Isaiah Collier is one of the biggest question marks on the Jazz roster for me because he is, like I said, he might be the fastest player in the NBA, which is ridiculous. He is one of the strongest guards in the NBA. Like if we're talking about actual point guards, like not like Luka and Shea and those.
Yes.
But this year, like for example, against the first loss to the Lakers, against Chicago in the double overtime win, he had 16 points and 9 assists. He shot 4 for 6 from the field and 8 for 11 from the free throw line. He's shooting 75% from the free throw line. Last year it was like 60% or something. So that's a good jump for him. but that ties into the question mark for him, which is his jump shot. I really don't know if guards can stick in the NBA anymore that don't shoot. It is tough. And this year, his response to not being able to shoot well this year is, okay, I'm not going to shoot threes. He's
averaging 1 3 per game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, he has a 1-for-1 game, a 1-for-2 game, a 1-for-3 game. But like, it's like if the Jazz make the playoffs in 2 years and he's on the team, what is preventing a team from giving him the Houston Rockets Russell Westbrook treatment? Just like playing him at the top of or like at the free throw line. And then it's like, okay, now Lowry and Keontae, these guys have more help on them when they drive into the lane. So I don't know. But with that said, Walt Clayton has had flashes early this year, but also he just got sent down to the G League. Mind you, he was brought right back up. It was just sort of like a go play with the stars for a game kind of thing. Yeah. But I don't know. For a 4-year college guy, Walt Clayton hasn't had he's definitely more advanced than some of these other rookies. Like, it's definitely a lot of back and forth with him. Mind you, he at least projects to be a really good shooter. So maybe just that alone will eventually carry him past Isaiah for that backup point guard spot. But yeah, I think that is honestly one of the biggest storylines for the Jazz. Not necessarily this year, because I think just like everyone's going to play this year. Even Cody Williams is playing this year.
You don't have to talk about Cody Williams today. That's my guy. I covered him in college. I love Cody, but it hasn't been great. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that is something that remains to be seen for this Jazz team. And I think it really could go either way. I think right now Isaiah is much better than Walt Clayton, but it's like just the play style could carry Walt past Isaiah.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see what Walt looks like over the next couple months. Like you said, they're both going to get a decent amount of run, and I never felt like Walt was going to be anything more than a high-level backup guard. I felt like that was his ceiling. He could even be a 6-man type of thing, but I never really viewed him as a starting level guard in the league. And if Keontae is going to play like this, then that's not really necessary from Walter right now anyway. But before we move on, because I do at the end here want to get some of your thoughts. You got to see AJ Devanza in person the other day, but sticking with the Jazz here, I wanted to get your thoughts on one more of the young guys, the guy that I thought had maybe the best summer of the team and a guy I was really high on after his rookie year last year, and that's Kyle Filipowski. He's obviously going to get more. He started to get more run the last couple of games here after an up and down start with the minutes. Now that Walker Kessler's out for the season and they're going to be tinkering with the forward spot and the center spot a little bit more. He was the beneficiary of one of those really nice ace plays last night. Ace kind of drew 2 defenders and dished it to Flip for a nice dunk. But I think Filipowski was like a minus 27 in like 20 minutes last night. So it's just been a weird start for him. And like I said, I thought I was the most encouraged by him last season among anybody on the kind of the young Jazz players. And obviously he had a great summer league, looked the part like a guy that could fill in for Lowry if Lowry misses extended time or if the Jazz decided to move on from Lowry, all that kind of stuff. He looked like an up-and-coming, versatile scorer. Defense is going to be what it is for a guy like that. But I was super encouraged. And now I want to see more from him over the next couple weeks. I know it's been a weird up and down start, but what have you seen from Flip and kind of how does he get back to where he was just last year as a playmaker and a scorer for this group?
Flip is very interesting. And mind you, he might have been the best value pick from his draft at 32nd overall. And then he steps in as like a top 7 guy in the Jazz rotation. This year, like you said, it has been rough. He's averaging 8 points, about 5.5 rebounds a game. And the shooting splits aren't amazing. But like Kyle Filipowski might really be a top 3 passer on the Jazz roster. Like he has that in his bag. Absolutely. The 3-pointer is coming around. The thing for him, and it's like, right now, the Jazz offense is fun and it's fast, and a lot of like they've had multiple 140 plus point games this year, but the defense is bad. They'll score 140 and give up 150. Like that's been the story for the Jazz a lot of the games this year. So and
they do play at a high pace, so that kind of allows more points. I think they have like the 6th highest pace in the league, so or at least that was going into yesterday when I looked it up. But there's a lot of possessions in these games.
Yeah, exactly. And Kyle Filipowski, man, he's like Bryce Sensabaugh level of poor defensively. Like there's a lot of times where it's like he just gets pushed into the paint, and it's so weird because he's a 7-footer, but he might be a better perimeter defender than he is an interior defender.
He's definitely more of a 4 than a 5 at this point of his career.
Yes, absolutely. And I think even when he puts on weight, I think he would be best serviced as a 4. Like, if he can eventually, like, no one guards Kevin Durant, but if you can guard or like keep up with the Kevin Durant-esque players at the 4, and it's like, okay, now you can keep Walker at the 5 and Flip can guard your 3-4s and they can play together. Like in the past, just because of the archetype of these three, like John Collins from last year, Walker and Flip could never really be on the court together. Mind you, they were on the court together, and that's why the Jazz won 17, however many games last year. But that lineup was like one of the worst, or any combination of that lineup was like one of the worst plus minus lineups the Jazz had last year. So like Flip and for like Bryce and also Taylor Hendricks, mind you, Taylor is coming off of a terrible injury last year. So it's like whatever he does this year, it's good. Like he's playing NBA basketball. He is doing awesome. But for Flip and Bryce, who wasn't part of the question, but I'll include him in here, with what I said about Will Hardy's lineups this year, if they're not playing defense, they're not going to get maybe some of the opportunities that people want them to get as part of the young core for the Jazz. But with that said, Kyle Filipowski, his defense is better than last year. Like he's put on some weight, and I think he needs to put on more weight. Similar story to Cody Williams. And then it's like, okay, things will start to kind of click and come together, and then the defense won't be as bad. Because I don't think Flip is a very smart player. And I think, of course, he's smart offensively. That's why he's a good passer at a 7-footer. But I think that basketball IQ also extends to defense. He just doesn't really have the tools yet to keep up with 4s and definitely not 5s. So sort of a balance for Flip, but I think it will eventually come around.
Yeah, and obviously the biggest part that was most encouraging about him last year was his offensive ability and his ability to score at multiple levels. Like he shot really well from that 3 to 10 foot range, and his three was, I think he shot like 35% on threes. I think he's at like 33% right now. So I think that'll tick up a little bit as the minutes become a little bit more consistent with him, and he's starting to maybe get some run and be the lead guy with some of the bench units and that kind of stuff. So I think that'll all tick up. But he's just a guy I wanted to note because I was super encouraged by him last year, and I did feel like he was going to be a part of this core, whether it was as a starter or a guy, one of the key reserves for this team, because like you said, he was a great pick for them at the top of the second round, and getting that value was super huge. But all right, Chandler, before I get you out of here, like I said, I got to get your thoughts on seeing AJ Dybantsa in person the other day. Obviously, the BYU 4-1 this year. That one loss came at kind of almost a true road game against UConn in Boston. Kind of a homecoming for AJ Dybantsa as he's from nearby in Brockton. But he had some foul trouble the other day against Wisconsin. They played that game at the Delta Center. It was just weird to see because the Jazz played later that night with the NBA Cup court. The BYU and Wisconsin. It was weird because it's a blue and a red team and the court is purple. So it's just like a very weird color mix on my TV screen. But it was a fun game nonetheless. Richie Saunders had a big game for BYU, but AJ Dybantsa had 18 points, got to the free throw line 12 times, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, despite the foul trouble early in the game. Like I said, what have you seen from AJ? Because obviously he's going to be a guy that I'm sure you're going to be watching a lot as the Jazz are looking at who they could get at the top of next year's draft. What did you see from AJ?
So that was my first time both covering and watching BYU in person this year. And I was very excited. I was like, okay. And also the Jazz, I was at the Jazz game later that night. So I was at Delta Center for like 10 hours on that day. It was kind of ridiculous. Staring at that purple court for that long. I came home with a headache. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, AJ, 18 points, 3 for 8 shooting. The big thing, 11 for 12 from the free throw line. Like you said, he had his own foul trouble. Wisconsin is a good team. They were number 23 coming into this game. I don't know if they're still ranked or not. And
new poll comes out later today after we record this, but they probably won't be in there. But yeah.
Yeah. And the defensive focus on AJ was clear, right? Like it was like, okay, our best defender is on him. And also every time he drove to the lane, you had the nearby help defender hedging, like sort of poking in at him. And then of course, strong help from the backside. And it was just like, even with that defensive focus, his first 2 shots were threes and both of them came up short. I was like, okay, they're starting, clearly the focus is there. And then he's settling early on. That's not good. But then he just absolutely turns it on. He is ridiculously good from the post. Like it's like, he goes into the post and he can be a hub from there. He can find cross-court passes, or he gives you a drop step or sort of a turn into like a mid-range jumper from the lane. And man, it was really cool. I think probably it's hard to say. I haven't been to a lot of college games. Probably the best college player I've seen to this point. But yeah, it was just like I said. I'm going to highlight this again. 11 for 12 from the free throw line. He wasn't shooting very good. He went 1 for 3 from the 3-point line. And it's like, okay, I'm going to get inside relentlessly. I'll get fouled coming out of the post or just driving downhill. And it's really impressive. It's really impressive watching him because he comes in and he can do a little bit of everything. Like, it's like, I don't really have a comparison for him because like he is in a way a point forward, but also he looks for his own shot probably more than he passes, but he sees all the passes. It's crazy. He does a little bit of everything. I expect this BYU team to be really good. Like you said, 4-1, their one loss came to UConn, but it was a 2-point loss. And like you said,
I mean, AJ played incredible in the second half of that game, kind of leading a ridiculous comeback. It was easily his best game of his freshman season. He was at 25 points on good efficiency. He didn't have any assists in that game, but his shot making at the end of near the end of that game willed them back into it. That was such a fun game.
Yeah, he is a true 3-level scorer. Of course, probably the stuff inside the arc is better than the stuff from 3-point right now, but I expect that to come around. I saw he was working with Lethal Shooter the other day, so we'll see how that goes. The game to highlight, January 26th against number 4 Arizona. So
yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about Arizona on this podcast. I'm going to talk a lot about Koa Pete as well in the coming weeks because he's obviously a draft prospect that's had a great start to the season. But yeah, I mean, the Big 12 is absolutely loaded. There's going to be that one for sure, but that there's going to be so many games that are going to be must watch to see to seeing AJ versus some other guys. Yeah, like you said, and then right after they play at Kansas at the end.
In a 4-game stretch, they have Arizona, Kansas, and Houston. So that will be like yeah, exactly. That's the stretch to watch.
If you want to stretch that out to a 6-game stretch, they have Texas Tech, Arizona, Kansas, and Houston in a 6-game stretch. That's pretty crazy.
To tie this into the Jazz really quick, because I do think talking about the draft will be kind of worth it. Drafting for fit is always like, it's not the thing to do, especially at the top of the first round in the NBA draft, right? Mind you, that's kind of what the Hornets did, and it seems to be working out with them with Con Knippel. But
I loved Con anyway. Like, I had him number 5 on my big board, so I it was kind of a more of a fit pick, but I love the Con pick, so I was a big fan of his as a player.
Yeah. Same. We were super high on him. He's a basketball computer, and that has been showing so far with the Hornets, and that's what they need. They need some maturity and some just like, this is gonna sound terrible, but like fundamental good basketball in Charlotte is what they need. And Con has been awesome so far. But again, like I said, drafting for fit is terrible. AJ might be the worst fit of any of the top 3 guys for the Jazz. If the Jazz find themselves there right now, their pick is projected to go to OKC at number 10. So we will see.
We're not going to worry about pick projections at any point. I think the Jazz will get to a point where they are safely, although there's some really, really bad teams in the NBA, especially in the Eastern Conference, with the Nets and the Wizards, and there's some really bad teams. But
that's the good thing about. That's the good thing for the Jazz is all those bad teams in the East have to play each other 3 or 4 times. So there's going to be some wins mixed in there.
They haven't played each other really at all much yet. So that's like you said, those teams will get some wins against each other at some point during the season. And the Jazz, luckily for them, this year they're in a loaded Western Conference. That's not going to be a fun thing, in the coming years when they're trying to turn things around. But right now it's certainly a good thing. Like last night, with the Lakers might be the 6th or 7th best team in the West last night, and that team is really, really good. And the Jazz are competitive too. I think the Jazz will continue to play some fun games. Like you said, it might be 150 to 140 every night, but you're at least going to tune in. At least every time I tune in, I'm enjoying watching the Jazz. And like I said, I was really tuned in just to watching Ace last night. In this extended minutes, he got to close the game as well. So I thought that was all encouraging. But Chandler, I appreciate you hopping on the podcast. We'll definitely have you back on throughout the season to keep talking Utah Jazz, because like you said, there's going to be a lot to talk about, even if the losses are stacking up. This team is going to be an exciting one and an interesting one for the future of the league. So I appreciate you hopping on this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks again to Chandler Holt from KSL Sports for joining us for the first part of today's show. You can follow him over on Twitter at @CHoltSports. And make sure to subscribe to the Jazz Notes podcast for more episodes and more coverage of the Utah Jazz with Chandler and Ben Anderson over at KSL. Ben's also been on the show before, ahead of the NBA draft a couple months ago. So I appreciate both those guys for giving us their time to help talk about the Jazz. But before we get out of here today with this episode, this will probably be the only episode this week because of the holiday. So happy early Thanksgiving for everybody for listening, just because of the holiday, and also the fact that I'm traveling for Colorado's season finale at Kansas State this weekend is probably the only are the biggest reasons why this will probably be the only episode. So I wanted to get some college basketball talk on the show today because didn't want to do just NBA with all the college basketball stuff that has been going on for the teams in the Mountain Time Zone. Most notably, Arizona have not done an episode since they beat number 3 UConn on the road 71-67 last Wednesday night. Arizona moved up to number 2 in the AP poll. There's a very good argument they could be number 1 now. I know Purdue, who remains number 1, beat Texas Tech by 30 points in the Baha Mar championship game. They also won at Alabama earlier this year, but Arizona is the first team this century, and I think since the 1989-1990 season, to have multiple wins over top 3 AP teams in their first 5 games. Obviously, Arizona beat then number 3 Florida in the season opener, and obviously beat number 3 UConn this past week. Just such an impressive Wildcats team. I plan on doing a much longer, bigger, in-depth episode just on Arizona at some point over the next couple weeks because they've got big games against Auburn and Alabama coming up in December, and this is just a really, really awesome team. They only really play 8 guys right now, but I think it's a really, really, really good 8 guys. You've got Mateus Krivas. You've got obviously Koa Pete, the star freshman, and Jaden Bradley, the veteran point guard, I think are the 3 key guys. And then kind of everybody else, it's kind of on a given night. Ivan Karchenkov has been really good. Braden Berries, the other freshman, standout freshman guard, has been really, really good. It's either him or Anthony Del Orso that's probably going to be playing alongside Jade Bradley on a given night. Then you've got Tobe Awaka, obviously backing up Krivas, and if he's having a big game, could play a little bit more minutes. And the same goes for Dwayne Aristode. Him and Karchenkov is kind of the other forward spot along Koa Pete, depending on who has it on a given night. They've got every spot filled, though, barring injuries. But I've just been super, super impressed with this Arizona team. And I wasn't really sure what to expect from Tommy Lloyd's group this season. Obviously, losing so many guys from last year, like Caleb Love, who is out of eligibility. He was actually playing pretty well with the Portland Trailblazers right now in the NBA. So happy to see that for Caleb. But also, obviously, losing Henry Vasar to the transfer portal, losing a handful of other guys. Obviously, they had another top draft pick with Carter Bryant last year. So it's a very new look team. It's really just Jaden Bradley. Obviously, Krivas has played a lot prior to last season. He had the season-ending injury very early. Del Orso was a pretty big part of last year's team, but obviously get Braden Burries and Koa Pete, the freshmen, are the big additions, and really not going out in the portal and getting a top guy was certainly not something I expected from Tommy Lloyd, but it certainly has worked out so far, and just kind of the mix of veterans and young, really, really good freshmen. So super, super impressive win. They held Alex Caravan, arguably UConn's best player, just 8 points on 5 shots in 35 minutes. So they did good job defensively taking stuff away, holding UConn to 45% from the field, 32% from 3. So, and to win in that building in Stores is never easy. So, got to give a shout out to the Wildcats for that big performance. And the other college basketball note I wanted to hit before getting out of here is actually for the team that Arizona is playing tonight, which they're playing the University of Denver on Monday night in Tucson, which continues this really, really challenging non-conference schedule for the Pioneers, which obviously we had DU coach Tim Bergstrasser on the show a couple weeks ago talking about that during the first week of the season. But they had a breakthrough signature win just 5 games into his tenure the other day. I was at that game in Fort Collins. DU upsets, stuns CSU. I think 83-81 was the final. Just a great performance all around by the Pioneers. I was just really surprised at that. I mean, I think this DU team is better than people expect and is going to be a team to watch in the Summit League. But I was really impressed with CSU through the first 4 games. They blew the doors off Loyola Chicago on the road. We're one of the best offensive teams in the country. Have not played a ton of defense, and that's really what came back to bite them in the DU game. DU had a bunch of shots in the first half, was able to kind of build a little bit of a lead going to halftime break. And even though CSU kind of got right back into the game in the second half. They were never able to really take a lead and take control of the game because it felt like every time CSU would go on a little bit of a run, DU had a big shot to answer them back with. And I had a big story in the Denver Gazette after that game, talking exclusively with Tim Bergstrasser and Zane Nelson, who had the big game off the bench for DU. So make sure to go check that out. Really happy for that program because it's rarity for them to go on the road and even beat a Mountain West team. Obviously, they had a win over at Montana State, a true road game early in the season for their first win. But other than that, it's been some struggles for them playing some WCC teams. They played at Washington, a pretty good team. So I just wanted to make sure I noted that on today's episode ahead of that game against Arizona tonight, which obviously Arizona is going to be heavily favored and is almost certainly going to win that one and win it comfortably. But DU deserves all the credit for going into a tough place to play. Moby was not full with Thanksgiving break coming up for the CSU students, but still a pretty good crowd, and they silenced it multiple times throughout the game. And I'm eager to see what this Pios team is able to do once the schedule gets a little bit lighter in December, and then as they get into Summit League play in 2026 when that rolls around. So thanks to everybody for listening to today's episode, a little bit of a combo episode talking NBA and college basketball. Thanks again to Chandler Holt from KSL Sports for coming on today to talk about Ace Bailey and the Jazz. We'll be back talking NBA next week, likely talking Nuggets and getting back into a little bit of a feast week recap as well, because everybody in the conference, or not in the conference, in the Mountain Time Zone is in action. Oh, other thing, sorry, one last thing before I got out of here, I forgot to note, was Utah State continues to be the only unbeaten team now in the Mountain West, runs past both teams in the Charleston Classic, beating both Tulane and Davidson by 20-plus points. MJ Collins, the Vanderbilt transfer, had 40 points on Sunday night in the championship game. So, and I think there's a really good chance Utah State is 10-0 heading into that first Mountain West game of the year, with actually against Colorado State in Logan on December 20th. So wanted to give those guys a shout out too for a really, really impressive start to the season and the second year of the Jared Calhoun era for the Aggies. They look like the Mountain West favorites going away right now, but obviously all of that is going to change once we get into those conference games. But that'll do it for today's episode of Basketball in the Mountains. Thanks again for everybody who subscribes to the channel, whether it's on or subscribes to the feed on Spotify or Apple, or subscribe to my YouTube channel if you prefer to watch over there. Wherever you do so, or preferring to watch or listen, make sure to subscribe, turn those notifications on so you never miss an episode. Got a lot to come in December now that college football season, especially for me here in the Mountain Time Zone, is wrapping up. So a lot to get to, and I'm really, really excited for the next couple months of hoops. So I'm going to try to get a lot of great guests on the show as well. So make sure, like I said, to subscribe, and make sure you never miss an episode. Leave a like, leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple, leave a comment. All that stuff is really, really appreciated by me and helps me grow the show. So once again, thanks everybody for listening, and enjoy Thanksgiving.